Hello, everyone. Feel free to turn on your cameras if you want. So we'll give it like 30 more seconds before we start. So you can grab like your notebook or open a Google Doc to take notes if you want to. Happy Monday. I hope you guys had a good weekend. So basically, for our second class, we're going to be learning about conditional statements, which are basically if statements, else statements, and elif statements. Number one, conditions. So we're going to start with the basics of what a condition is. So essentially, when you write code, your computer will have to make certain decisions. And these decisions, the fancy word, we'll call them conditions. And conditions are basically a yes or no question. But the computer will not return yes or no. The computer instead returns true or false. So basically, a condition is a decision that will, the output will be true or false. Conditional operators. So this is how we will compare conditions. Operators compare two pieces of data, and these operators are just symbols that we'll use for comparison. So equal to, we use two equal signs instead of one equal sign. For one equal sign, we use one equal sign to set a variable equal to a certain value, while we use two equal signs to compare and to test if one value is equal to another. Not equal to is basically just an exclamation mark with an equal sign. And the other four are pretty self-explanatory: greater than, less than, greater than or equal to, and less than or equal to. So how do conditional operators work? So we learned about these operators, and now we know that they return true or false. So let's look at the first box, 5 equals 5. So if I put 5 equals 5 into the computer, the program is going to return true, because equals means we're checking if 5 equals to 5, and that's true. So the computer will return true. Now, if we go down, we have 5 not equals to 5, and it's clear that it will return false because 5 does not equal 5. So basically that expression, 5 not equals 5, is false. So these are just a neat little chart if you ever get confused about how these work. Yeah. So here's some practice. So you can refer back to the chart on the last slide. So you can write this down on a piece of paper, or you can put it into, you can open a Replit program if you want and copy this into the program. So the questions, we have 5 questions here. What is going to be returned for each line of code? I'll show you how to open a Replit if you want to do it on a Replit program. So basically, I'm in my account, and feel free to get started working on those if you don't want to do it on Replit. On the top left, we have a create REPL, and I want to search Python. Let's give it a name, 918 practice. Now, I can't copy and paste this, but let's just write the first one together. Print 6 not equals 5. Okay. So, you can think about is 6 equal to 5? The answer is no, so the computer will return false. If we run the program, we get false. So, this is basically like an answer key if you want to type it into a REPL. But I suggest you do it first, and then we will go over the answers, but feel free to put it in Replit. So 809, we will come back and we will go over them. Okay, so I'll give you guys a couple more seconds to finish up the practice that I have on the slide. If you guys didn't finish, that's okay. We can come back to it. So basically, for the past couple of minutes, we're just working on the practice, these 5 exercises on conditionals. So I also wrote them on Replit, so we can sort of check our answers with a program. So here are the answers. The first one is false, 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 true, false, and true, true. So we did the first one. We know that 6 equal to 5? The answer is no, so we will have false. And for the second one, we have quotation marks around 34. Is that equal to 34 without quotations? Trick question, the answer is no, false, because even though they are essentially both 34, one of them is a string and the other is an integer. A string being something, a word, a phrase, characters with quotation marks around it. So then we get true because these two strings are equal. And for the fourth one, 100 is not less than or equal to 88. So we get false. And then for the last one, coffee is not equal to boba. we get true. Okay. So next on to logical operators. Logical operators are these three words, and, or not. These three operators, these three words are used on conditional statements. So the box in green says that and returns true if both statements are true, or returns true if one of the statements is true. And not simply reverses the result. So if it's false, then it actually returns true, or vice versa. So we'll look at some practice here. So and is when returns true if both statements, or returns true if one of the statements are true. So right here in the little box example, we have print true and false. We will get false because not both of the statements are true. So only one of them is true. But we see that and requires that both of the statements are true. But only one of them is true, so we will print false. And for the second one, we sort of have to split it into multiple steps. Is 5 equal to 5? We know that that is true. But is 4 not equal to 4? So the first one is true. And the second one, 4 not equal to 4. Let's think about that. 4 not equals to 4. We get for this 4 is not equal to 4. We get true. Oh no, we do get false, right? So since only one of them is true, the final answer will be false, not true. So here's some practice for you guys to do. So basically, if I refer back to the last slide, this green box is really important. And if I were to take notes, I would write down the stuff in the green box. So you guys can do this practice on a sheet of paper. And if you write these in Python, you will basically get your answer, like a little cheat sheet answer key-ish, if you copy these into your program in Python. So these are a little bit trickier and it requires some more logical thinking. So it's okay. We'll have more practice on it. Feel free to drop your answers in the chat if you want some feedback, or the answers are on the next slide. So if you are finished with that. So we can work until maybe 8:17, or if you guys are done, you can message me done in the chat so I can know. Okay, so we'll start going over the first one. So we have print true and false. Print true and false. So we know that if we want for and, it will only return true if both of the statements are true. And in here we have true and false. So only one of them is true. So in the end, we will have false. For number 2, something a little bit similar, but with or only requires one of them to be true. And we see that, yes, one of them is true. So for the number 2, we will get true. And for number 3, we have not true or false. Essentially, we will see what it will print for true or false. We know that our previous answer, we got true or false is equal to true. So not true or false, we want the opposite of true. The opposite of true is false. Good there? Okay. So next we have print Gilmore Girls is equals SpongeBob, and 39 equals 39. So we know that the first one is false. Those two strings are not equal. But for the second one, 39 and 39 are both integers, so we get true. And if we have false and true, remember that and requires both of them to be true, but only one of them is true in this case. So in the end, we have false. So, does anyone want to explain the number 5? Feel free to unmute. If not, that's okay. So we have Python equals computer. That is false or false. We get false requires one of them to be true, but none of them are true, so we get false. For the last one, it's pretty similar. So we get false or true. Remember, or will return true if only one of them is true. So we know that, yes, one of them is true, so the whole thing will be true. So next, we're going to learn about order of operations. So many of you guys probably heard of this in math. So we first do parentheses, then exponents, then multiplication or division, and addition or subtraction. So Python, really similar things. So first we have the 2 stars are exponents, and the next we will perform the multiplication or division, and then addition or subtraction. And then we have our whole group of conditional operators. Conditional operators are what we will do after exponents, multiply, divide, and add, subtract. Conditional operators. And then we have our not, and or. So here is our what we're going to learn, what we're going to focus on today, if statements. So these are really important, and this is really foundational for your future learnings in Python. So basically, the logic in an if statement is pretty simple. So if some condition is true, then the computer will do this. If it's not true, then we're going to skip over the big chunk in the if statement, and we're going to do the next command. So on the left, we have a little diagram that shows if the test expression or if this condition is true, then we're gonna do this. If not, we're gonna skip it and do something else. So here's the syntax. We have a variable. The variable is optional, but most of the times you'll find that you do need a variable in if statements. And then we have, in the next line, we have if some variable, in this case we have birthday. So if birthday equals true with a colon, the colon is really important. If you don't have a colon, then the program will crash and it'll send you an error. If birthday equals true, then we're gonna have some sort of the program, you will do this or a print statement or whatever after that. Else, colon, again, we have to have a colon, print something else. So you can have whatever you want inside your if statements. So essentially, for if statements, let's say I'm testing my age. Let's say I'm making a program about senior citizens. So if my age, I'm going to declare a variable called age. I'm going to make it equal to, for example, my age is 87. So to write an if statement, we have to first have if, right? So I type if, and if something is true, then do this. So something, let's say if my age is greater than 60 with a colon, enter, print with quotation marks inside the print statement, you can live in this senior apartment. I can print another thing if I want. I can have as much information inside my if statement as I want. So I can make it as little as possible or as much as possible. But you have to have at least something in your if statement. It can't be blank. Then it will throw an error. So I can print, hooray, welcome, for example. Now, notice that below my if statement, my lines of code are indented with a tab. So this is the syntax you have to indent for your code that's going to run after your if statement. But if I want to write an else, if my age is not greater than 60, then print something else, say something else. I would not be right if I write else over here. Else has to go back on the unindented side with a colon and print. For example, if my age is not greater than 60, I'll say you aren't eligible to live here. So if I run my program, let's see what happens. You can live in this senior apartment, hooray, welcome. Because the if statement says my age is greater than 60, then do this. So here's an important note you can jot down or think about equal signs. So basically here's just more about the syntax. Now we're going to learn about else statements, which we did sort of touch on. For else statements,
I keep hearing this.
yeah, I think I heard it too, but I think we're good now. For else statements, the next step with an if statement is to add an else statement. For basically every time you use an if statement, you do want an else statement following the if statement. So basically, I want an else statement because I want to tell my program if this doesn't work, then else we're gonna do something else. So basically what I said, if my Boolean expression is true, then I'll execute this code in the indented block. Otherwise, else I'll do something else. For else, you want to keep in mind that you don't have a condition. So you just write else with a colon. You don't have birthday equals true. So back to our senior citizen example. Notice how after the word if, I have a condition to check if something is true or something is greater than 60. But after my if statement, I don't write any conditions, I just have a colon. So if I write else age is less than 60, that would not be right. The code will throw an error, it won't work. So you know what, let's just see what happens if I do have something after the else. See, we have an error, so we have to remove it. Nothing goes after the if, just a colon, and on the next line is the information that you want. So elif statements are another level of an if statement. They just make it more functionable and you can do more things if you have an elif statement. So elif basically is the combination of else and if smushed together, if it's easier to think about it that way. And it basically just shows a portion of code that will only be executed if the first if statement is false and if it doesn't work. So the syntax for an if statement is pretty much really similar to the if statement and the else statement. We have elif and your condition with a colon and your information at the bottom. So let's go back to my replit here. Feel free to copy down my example if it helps you remember things and visualize things. So now that we have an if statement and an else statement, let's add an elif statement to make it fancier. So remember that else always goes at the end. It's your last resort. It's your plan C. So an if goes first. And so let's add an elif statement. elif does require a condition. So let's say elif my age is less than 8. If my age is less than 19, for example, with a colon, I'll print let's say you are still a child. You can't live here either. So essentially, we're just adding another layer to our testing. So first we test if age is greater than 60. If not, then we're going to do the elif portion. And if elif also doesn't work, then finally we will do the else statement portion. But let's say if my age is equal to 87 and I'm on the first one, my age is greater than 60. So I'll just print, you can live in this apartment, hooray, welcome. And then I'll just skip after, and I'll just skip elif and else. So I won't do that anymore if my first if statement is completed. So here's some if, elif, else practice. So we have 3 scenarios here with the code in the picture. So number 1, if the user enters 3, then what will be returned? So basically, if num equals 3, then we have a bunch of elif statements and an else statement. So how will we think about this code? How will we think about it so that if we change the value that's inputted, how will we get a different result? If you guys need a hint or you guys are stuck, you can throw something in the chat and I'll help. Good job, looking good so far. Looks like you guys have got it. Great, so I'm pretty sure you guys have all nailed it. We will get Wednesday. Please enter number 1 through 7 and Sunday, because basically we will just go through all of the if statements, all of the elif statements, and see which one matches. So this format is pretty useful when you write your own code. If you want to write your own little game or whatever it is, you will always come across this. Next, we're going to learn about the input statement. This is also really important, and you'll use it for a lot of games, or if you want to just ask the user for their information, for their name. So how it works, we have input and parentheses, for example, enter your name. And we have quotation marks around enter your name because, as we learned in the last class, it is a string, right? So you might wonder, why do we have x equals this input? So we have x equals this to make it easier to reference the user's input. So then we have print hello plus x. So let's try this out. You can write it in your own program to see how it works. X equals, or whatever variable name you want. For example, I want it to be name. Your name equals input. We want to have parentheses and quotation marks inside the parentheses because that's what we want to print out. Let's say enter your name here. Then let's print your name. Enter your name here. So let's say I enter my name, Claire, and I press enter. So, and then the program will print Claire, right? Or whatever the user inputs. Now let's say we want to make it more fancy. What if we want the computer to greet the user and using their name? So let's say Claire, or your name, comma, you can use comma or plus interchangeably, comma, I want to print the stuff inside of the quotation marks, so that's why I want to add quotation marks here. Welcome to this game, if we were making a game. Here are the rules, whatever rules you want. So if we run the program now, we get, let's enter my name. For example, my name is Sage. Sage, welcome to this game. Here are the rules. So it just makes it more customizable if you say. And you don't have to say enter your name. You could say enter your age or enter your favorite number and I'll square the number, for example, right? So next we're going to learn about solving problems using input. So when programming, we use input a lot when you are solving problems or creating a game or all sorts of different things where you want the user's name, you want the user's age or anything like that. So this sort of takes you through the logic, takes you through sort of how you need to think when you're using input and using it to solve problems. So first you might want to think about what are you asking the user? So do I want to ask the user for a number? Do I want to ask the user for their name or an integer or a decimal? And then we also want to think about what do I need to do with that data? So do I want to multiply it by 5? Do I want to divide it by 2 or, or say square it? And when do I do what? So when do I do what is how you're going to implement else statements and elif statements. So next, when we are solving problems, this is really important and it's probably going to come up in your homework or in your future projects that we have here. So we want to note that it's important to cast your variables. So as we learned last class, we know that casting means turning one data type into another data type, right? So if I want to turn a string into an integer, then I will have to cast it into an integer, or vice versa, like an integer into a string, or if you want to change the data type, we have to cast. And why is it so important in solving problems is that, for example, in this example on the screen, we have number equals int of input enter a number. So when I enter a number, the number is going to automatically be a string. Okay, so since it's a string, on our next line of code, we want to multiply it by 5. But the thing is, 5 is an integer, and our number, this inputted value, is a string. And we know that we can't multiply strings and integers together for like a mathematical value. So that's why in the arrows, in the green circles, we want to change our input to an integer. So this way we can do math more easily. So basically this is another example on the right that sort of takes you through the process of solving a problem using input and using if statements, elif statements. So this is just a simple example, and that is the basic concepts that we are going to learn today. But implementing these concepts into real projects and into real exercises can be more difficult, and you will run into more possible errors in this step. So so the homework is linked in the slides. It's one REPL set that you can fork, and another fun extra practice that is not the usual problem sets is a mini project, if you say. So we're going to make a choose your own adventure game for homework. It's optional, but it is really fun and you really get to implement what you learned today. So here's an example, or if you just want to Google choose your own adventure game Python, there's a ton of different examples on how to get started if you're stuck. So first of all, any questions? Any questions about if statements or input? So if you have any questions, feel free to unmute or put them in the chat. So right now, with our some time left, I'll be answering any questions that you guys have, and feel free to get started on the homework and ask questions if you need. What we can do is, let's look at the homework together first. So on the first link on the 34th slide, I press this link right here and I want to fork the project. So this button on the right, fork it. We want to fork the repo so we can actually edit it. So basically there are 6 questions, and some of them, they do get more difficult as they go along, and some of them may be a little bit more tedious, or you may need to write more code than you're used to, but that's okay. The answers are in the next link. So I'll leave you guys to this. You guys can feel free to get started on this, and so what we're going to do now is we'll be, as a class, we'll be making our choose your own adventure game to show you guys how to get started. So let's open a new REPL for this mini project. We want Python for a template. Choose your own. So choose your own adventure game. You might have seen those in books where if they gave you a plot, they set up a scene, and you have choices if you want to go down the cave or if you want to drink the potion. So let's start with a story. Let's start with a place to be for the characters. Does anyone have any ideas or on how we should get started? Yeah, Bing Chen.
The setting is in a place called the middle of nowhere.
Okay. You are in the. Anything else? The middle of nowhere.
With farmland.
With a bunch of farms around you. Great. So let's say there are 5 cows heading your way. So this is the first setting the story, right? So we will print our paragraph. So now we're going to have a choice for the users. So let's say, users, do you want to approach the cows or do you want to run away? So how would we ask the users for a choice? Yeah, go ahead.
If statements.
Yes, good thinking. So we do want if statements, but right before if statements, we're going to use an input statement, right? So we're going to ask the user, so A, do you want to do this, or B, do you want to do that? So let's have choice 1 equal to our input. So we want to give it a name. We want to assign the variable to this input so we can access it easier in our if statements. Input, do you want to approach the cows or run away from the cows? Enter 1 for the first option or 2, right? So now this allows the user to choose their options. Let's run our program to see where we are. Oops. Okay. We're in the middle of nowhere with a bunch of cows. So let's just say number 1 for great. So now we are making progress. Now the user can enter their choice. Now let's make it more fun. So as Bing Chen said, we're going to use an if statement. So if choice 1, so if what the user entered, if it's equal to 1, right, then we'll let the users know that you chose to approach the cows. Now the cows are. So now what are the cows doing now that we are running towards them?
Maybe they're like starting to fly.
Okay, now the cows are levitating and flying. Right. So now they're flying and they're flying towards you. Let's leave that as is, and we're gonna make an elif statement. We're gonna make a second choice, right? So if what the users entered was 2, so if the users want to run away from the cows, then this is going to happen. Print. What happens when we run away from the cows? Any ideas?
They escape.
Okay, I like that. The 5 cows escape.
Escape from what?
They escape from you, right? You're running away from the cows. So let's say they escape and they disappear into a portal. The portal door is still open. So now let's see. Let's give the user another choice. So we want to, when we want the user's choice, we want to use an input, right? So when we use input, we want to assign it to a variable. Let's call it choice 3. We're going to call this one choice 2. We'll come back to choice 2. Choice 3 equals input user, do you want to enter the portal or do you want to stay in the middle of nowhere? Enter 1 for first option or 2, right? So basically we're giving the user another choice and you kind of see how this goes. You just build off of your choices and it just keeps on going until you want it to end. So let's go back to choice 2. So they're flying, the cows are flying towards you. Now use input. What choices should we give the users?
Wait, choice two. Like the levitating cows and stuff.
Yeah.
Okay, so when the cows are levitating, you either run away from them or fight them.
Okay, great. Fight the flying cows or run away again. 1 for first or 2 for second. So now we want another if statement, right? So we want to check. So if the user enters 1, if they want to fight the cows, then do this. If the user enters 2, if they want to run away, then we have to do this. So we want to write if choice 2 equals 1 in quotation marks, then print something. I'm just going to set this up. Elif choice 2 equals 2. If they want to run away, then print this. Notice how our new if statements and elif statements, they aren't over here, right? If they were not indented, then it would be a different story. The program would not function the way that we want it to. So we want to keep it indented. So now let's set up option 3. Option if choice 3 equals 1, then print this. Or elif choice 3 equals 2, then print this. Let's make the user, for example, we want the game to end. Let's say we have it end when they run away from the flying cows. So elif choice 2 equals 2, then print, let's say we say, a new herd of magic cows suddenly appeared and eat you. The end. Thanks for playing. So this is one way to end the game. So even if you end the game here, for example, you can still have the game to continue on over here. So there are multiple different endings for your choose your own adventure game. So I think it's really fun, and let's just keep on going here. So what if you fight the flying cows? First of all, what do we fight flying cows with? We'd have to use something to reach the cows, right? Since
Okay, so there are two weapons, a bow and arrow and a humongous sword.
huge sword. Okay. You have a bow and arrow and a huge sword. So should you use the bow and arrow or the sword? Now we'll keep on going with our if statements, right? Sort of like a whole entire loop. The if statements are nestled inside of each other. So if, oh, you see, I made a mistake here. I put print this, but this would not work. This would not allow the user to enter what they want. So we want to change this to choice 4 is equal to input, right? We want to use input if we want the user's information. If choice 4 is equal to 1, let's assume that the user knows to enter 1 or 2. With a colon after your if statements, print you chose the bow and arrow, and what happens then?
Okay, so when you choose the bow and arrow, you shoot one cow, and then the cows come closer to bite you.
Okay, great.
Dead.
Oh, okay. You hit one cow, but the other four are now enraged and charge towards you. Uh-oh. Great, have fun. So elif choice 4 equals 2, meaning if the users decide to take the sword instead, print, let's say the cows trick you and they steal your sword. Cows trick you, they steal your sword.
They is spelled incorrectly.
They steal your sword. Thank you. That's the end of your story. Goodbye. Thanks. Goodbye. Right. So here's another way to end the game if you want a shorter game. Obviously, this could go on for a long time, but you just want to be careful about your indentations. So notice how these if statements and print statements are all indented differently. So if your indentations are off, then unfortunately your game will not work properly. So you want to be really careful and precise about that.
So can we actually play the game and see if it works?
Good idea. Good idea. Okay. So first option, do we run away or approach?
I'd say approach.
Approach. 1. The cows are levitating, they're flying towards you. Fight or run? I think we should fight.
Yeah, fight.
You have a bow, an arrow, or a sword. Which one should we use?
I think we should try the bow because you can shoot more.
Okay, 1 for bow and arrow. You chose the bow and arrow. Now you hit one cow, but the other 4 are mad. So now that the program has ended, because we haven't wrote that much, so obviously this can go really far. And one tip is that notice how over here on the right, your code is really messy and really close together. If you want to add a blank line after your paragraph, you can just do print with nothing inside of the quotations, nothing inside of the parentheses. So see, now we have a blank line here. So this is really fun, and I'll share this repo with you guys so you guys can use it as an example. But obviously, if you Google choose your adventure Python, there are a lot of different options out there. So I'm excited to see what you guys make. And of course, you also have this set of projects. These are not as creative, but they're really good for working on what we learned today. Yeah, Jason?
How do I show you the code?
Okay, so basically in your replit on the top right we have invite, and we can just, the easiest way, on the bottom we have private join link. We want to toggle that button so that now it's anyone can access your program. So as long as you make sure you change the little private join link button, you can copy and paste your website, the link, and attach it to Google Classroom. I'll make it an assignment so I can look at it and leave your comments if you want.
Okay, thanks.
Any other questions? Questions, comments, concerns? Good job in class today. Today was pretty material heavy. If statements and else statements and input are all used a lot, so great job on getting through that. If you guys don't have any questions, that's it for today. Bye. See you next week.